GrokTALK.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GrokTALK.com.
GrokTALK.
This is GrokTALK. I had to wait for Mike to stop talking. He's eating. Are you eating an apple again? Another bad apple? Yes, you are. Welcome back to GrokTALK. I'm Steve McDonald here with Skip Murphy, Mike Rogers, Max Abramson. Marmar Rogers is supervising. Everybody knows we need a chaperone, and she's it this week. We are brought to you by GrokTALK.com and the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers, coming to you most weeks from Concord, New Hampshire, but every now and then we pack up and roll off to some other location. The show's a little bit different, but it's still a show, and we like doing it. So thank you for listening, and we appreciate that. You can donate to us at GraniteGrok.com if you'd like to help offset the cost of doing the show, since we don't earn any money doing it. But things still cost money. And now we've entered into the squirrel round. But we have some things that Max didn't get to in the first segment, so we do kind of want to visit those.
But you know what I should do while we're doing the squirrel round? I should kind of go back and say, okay, new headset, board. I should try. You know, have we run out of places to plug stuff in for electricity?
Nah, we got to have a couple more. There's lots of power strips down
Okay,
at the
well,
hardware
tell you
store.
what.
We'll just go get them.
I'm going to go into my bag of cords,
Okay.
and I'm going to see if I can get that new headset to work for Marmar.
All right. Okay, he's off.
She won't
You
talk.
will be made to care, as Eric Erickson at Red State says.
She doesn't have to talk, though. Yeah, but see, here's the thing. She can bribe me with food to turn her microphone off.
I have no food, but chili dogs afterwards.
Yeah, maybe. Okay.
Chili
Hang on.
dog.
All right, so you go do your thing. Let's get back to Max.
So the real turning point was a few weeks ago. It was HB 445, defining poker as a game of skill, which was actually a pretty important game for people who like to play poker. But it was a turning point because the Jaspercrats and the Democrats kept showing about 220 votes each time, 240, to vote against every single platform Republican bill and every pro-liberty bill. And we could never break about 120, 122 votes. For the first time, the numbers posted up on the board, we were expecting 120. We had 150 state representatives break ranks and vote to redefine poker as a game of skill so that people could play it for money. Without it's currently considered a gambling, a game
Right.
of chance
Yep.
because they expect random.
We had Kevin Bloom on to talk about it
So
last month.
Once that 150 votes came up, it was clear that probably the Republicans, maybe even a few of the Democrats, are now breaking ranks. Once they break ranks, they start doing it more and more, and we've gotten our first couple of ITLs, and one of the big ones, one of the reasons that I ran is because I've seen how DCYF, some of their officials, are abusing the position that they have, and they are meeting with children at daycares without being at audio or video recorded. And that particular state agency, which complains that they're understaffed, that they're 10 staff members short, may or may not be true. They have shown up to daycares. They take a kid aside. There's no witness there. They have a little discussion behind some closed door somewhere, and they come out and they say, "Oh, they've accused mom or dad or grandpa or grandma of physical or emotional or sexual abuse or something else, but there's no audio or video, so we don't know how that came about." So HB 330 was amended on the floor. The committee recommended ITL, and it wasn't just that it was overturned. It was overturned on a roll call by 213 to 157. Actually, I think 214 to 157. And it was amended on the floor, so they made some wording changes. Once they amended it on the floor, all of a sudden there's no more party recommendation from Flanagan, who's going with the Democrats every single time. Jasper and Flanagan have been pushing the Democrat Party platform the entire time. Now all of a sudden there's no recommendation on it because it's amended. It passes. Almost every Republican in the House voted to pass this bill. So HB 380, which allows you to sign something saying you want that audio or video recorded. You want that first conversation audio or video recorded. So your rights as a parent have been protected. We've overcome kind of the logger jam where we found a way to do it. And it's through floor amendments. Once you have a floor amendment, there's no longer a recommendation. Unfortunately, House Bill 10, or House Resolution 10, asking the Department of Justice to re-examine the conviction of Chad Evans. Someone from the Judiciary Committee came down. The Judiciary Committee voted to ITL the measure, I think 16-0, saying they don't even want an investigation. Or they said that it was inappropriate for us to ask the Department of Justice to do anything because they're a state agency and we're just the House of Representatives. That was their argument.
Sorry.
Yes,
that's like the dumbest argument ever.
And did not the legislature create the agency, and can it not destroy it?
Yes, it can, but
you don't have any oversight.
That's
okay.
the Judiciary Committee's position. And so this issue may be revisited again next year.
Everybody in justice is excited, aren't they?
Well, here's the problem. As long as that conviction stands, the real...
Sit down and talk. We don't need it now.
The presumed real killer, Jeff Marshall, the babysitter, who was the only person to be with a baby Cassidy Bortner at the time that she died. There's a tremendous amount of evidence that was kept from the jury. And there's been a tremendous amount of new evidence that's come out that has suggested that Chad Evans didn't do it, that Jeff Marshall had done it. Or she did have a congenital heart defect and there's evidence of cardiac arrest. She may have just died from, it's possible that she died from natural causes. So that was postponed indefinitely. We only managed to get about 24 votes on the floor by division to bring the issue to the floor. So we didn't even have the platform Republicans there to support us. Even more interesting, though, was HB 673, which would establish a 2.25% sales tax. It was ITL'd unanimously by Ways and Means, but we decided to pull that off the calendar and roll call it. And that turned out to be a very, very good idea. Voting for a sales tax or state income tax is kind of like the third rail in politics. Mm-hmm. So we had 13 state representatives, all Democrats, vote for the creation of a state sales tax. One of them is in my county. He's about 2 towns over, and we'll be reminding people before the next election that he did, even though he comes from Rockingham County, we'll be reminding his voters that he did vote for a state sales tax.
And what was his name?
I think it's Cahill.
Okay.
I should turn the camera towards you so people watch when you skewer yourself with that knife.
I'm using my knife going away from me.
Yeah, it's still
gonna poke your finger
right in the eye. Anyway,
there was one fee that went through. It was a $5 fee on marriage licenses, and they said, well, we haven't increased this fee in 20 or 30 years, which is always the argument for more taxes and fees. And it was, of course, to provide $40,000 a year in funding for the Domestic Violence Fund. Representative Sanborn, a platform Republican, showed up with a floor amendment to still provide the $40,000. And Democrats got up and said, where are they going to pull the $40,000 from? And so they defeated the floor amendment and then passed a $5 fee to pay for the Domestic Violence Fund. The problem is...
Why do we need a domestic violence fund run by the state?
Why can't that be done locally?
Mm-hmm. There are plenty of organizations that provide help and protection for victims of domestic violence.
This is just another case of government crowding out those formerly private and independent charities, and we've seen that since the beginning of the real progressive era, World War II with FDR.
And companies and mutual aid societies, employers used to do this, and it used to be the expectation that if you're a responsible corporate citizen that you did your part. Now they say, well, we pay taxes. A lot of people
instead they go and they pay a lobbyist to go make sure their taxes get used the way they want.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, and they're minimized, and they shift. Business Industry Association is, of course, lobbying continuously to increase spending and also reduce their tax burden to push more of the tax burden onto John Q. Public and John Q. Retiree and take more money out of our pockets.
Now,
ironically.
I would be okay with that if these charities were then forced to open up their books to the government entities that are funding them. and where the government could have actual veto power over what they do. Because in a sense, what they've done, they've prostituted themselves. They've become whores to government for taking the money. But then they keep insisting, well, we're independent. We're seeing this in Belknap County where, oh my gosh, where our funding overall is being reduced by 5%. Hellfire, brimstone, destruction, doomsday. Let me see your books.
True. So now we're still reminding people that Governor Hassan still cut over $7 million from county nursing homes, which just puts even more economic pressure on everyone. And now she's come through with a budget after cutting that, asking for about $500 or $600 million more. I don't know the exact figure, more than the amount of revenue that we're going to have. So in order to pay for all the things that she wants to spend money on, she's not proposing enough taxes to cover it. We would have to come up with another $500 or $600 million in taxes to pay for everything. So now everyone on the left is railing against these draconian, terrible spending cuts. Well, what the three finance divisions in the House are looking at, and what the Senate is looking at, they are all increases in spending, but they are smaller increases that are small enough so that the revenue growth with the current tax structure provides enough revenue to pay for everything. So we're not even talking about tax cuts right now. We're only talking about balancing the budget with the revenues that are coming in. And these so-called draconian cuts aren't cuts at all. It's just they want a $1 billion increase in spending, and we're only getting about $400 or $500 million in new revenue in.
Well, who can blame them? I mean, it's worked very well at the national level for years. I mean, why not do it here? Why not say, okay, we propose $1 billion in more government, but we don't make that argument, and whenever anybody says we don't want to spend that much, they claim it's a cut. And that's what they've always done. So I don't know what the Republican messaging is in opposition to that. I'm sure it's horrible.
The problem is Neil Kirk has proposed, who was an O'Brien guy, but he was appointed by Jasper to chairman of a committee, and Neil Kirk, all the chairmans, are beholden to Jasper, and Jasper's beholden to Shurtleff and Buckley.
Mm-hmm.
So
could we call these Jasper's carrots?
They're Jasper-crats.
No, there was a British comedian called Jasper Carrot who was quite rude.
Okay.
So these are Jasper's carrots because he's leading the Republicans his way by putting them on committees.
So, and the Democrats and rhinos are doing this all over the country. They're suddenly discovering, as the budget process goes on, that they're suddenly discovering that they have to raise taxes. Well, here's an 8-cent per gallon tax increase in this bill. The problem with that is, instead of having the lowest gas tax in New England, we would have an average or above average gas tax. It would be higher than Massachusetts. And the vast majority of people in New Hampshire who are in New Hampshire buying gas in a given week, at any given time they are in another state during that week for work, for commute, going to visit friends. So instead of buying their gas here, if the gas is 3 or 4 cents a gallon more here, they'll be buying all of their gas in Massachusetts, Maine, Vermont.
Max, question. What was the budget for DOT last session? What are they trying to make it this session?
I don't have the figures. I only sat in on one finance committee hearing this week.
Could you get that for us? Because that's really what it comes down to. Because we're hearing all these, all over the news of these huge cuts to DOT where 700 employees are going to be laid off. And it really comes down to, okay, what was the actual budget last year? And what is Hassan trying to propose for DOT? Because if it's a huge amount of increase, well, then this is a big kerfuffle over nothing.
Well, I think
so. What is it that they're actually spending the money on? Because you don't suddenly run out of money for employees that you already have, unless you granted them a ridiculous pay increase and now find that guess what, your pot of money divided by the number of employees doesn't match the pay you promised them. Or B, you actually spent the money on something else altogether, like boondoggles or unnecessary equipment.
Two things. First, I think that the reason they put the DOT budget in the way they did and tied the gas tax to it is so that people couldn't vote against the gas tax without defunding DOT. Having said that, I lost my other thought.
Well, it really comes down to...
completely vacated from my mind.
I mean, there's been no mention of that in the media. And that's really the crux of the problem, because once you know what those two numbers are, a lot of this nonsense goes away. But we come back to the
I
whole
remember
problem of it's miserable Republican messaging.
Well, part of the argument about the whole DOT thing has to do with something regarding, first of all, pilfering funds, one-time fixes, no long-term strategy for funding DOT. There's a couple of other arguments. At the end of the day, it does come down to A, how have we been funding them and how much have we been spending, and B, how do we continue to fund them and how much is that going to cost? And whatever the difference is will tell us where we're going.
Any tax increase, I think they can depend on it being roll called. I'll call the roll call, I'll stand for the roll call, so that these quote-unquote Republicans, notice the quotation marks, these Jaspercrats, have to go home and explain how they voted for all these tax and fee increases. And as long as they know that they're going to face stiff primary opposition, and as long as they know that there are independent conservatives out there who are actually going to vote against them and vote Democrat to throw them out, they're going to be a lot less willing to push these tax increases through. They can say whatever they want. But if they know they're going to be primaried, and if they know if they win their primary, that a lot of their voters are going to, they have no loyalty to the Republican Party whatsoever, they're just going to switch over and they're going to support the Democrat. Because if you're going to get tax increases anyway, a lot of people are just like, well, hell, might as well just vote Democrat if I'm going to get tax increases.
Well, and occasionally you'll find a conservative Democrat that isn't in lockstep, as you said. Some of these, if they could break from their caucus, would actually vote with the Republicans some of the time.
All right, we're going to take a short break. No, we're not. Test. No test. He's testing. He's getting testy. We're doing something. Let me turn some of these over. You might want to do this. Try again. You got nothing, Sparky. You got nothing. All right. I called you Sparky. So what? All right. You know what we're going to do? You can do that all you want. I'm going to take a break, and we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Skip is happy because he thinks he's solved something.
Maybe. Do you hear me?
I hear you.
Do you guys hear me?
I hear you.
Oh, cool. I've slaved one. I give you another board to play with.
Yay.
You're going to have to clean that off. You need that board closer.
I do. I can reach it.
Cool.
Yeah. I can turn that one off.
Yeah, hold on a second. Oh, I do see myself on the volume. Yes, it works.
Okay. All right, we can add more headsets, more
Yeah.
people, more GrokTAK. Welcome back to
we can add
GrokTAK.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more.
We need a bigger room.
We need
Stadium
a bigger,
seating.
We need a bigger budget.
Much bigger budget. Anyway, Max has 3 more bills he wants to touch on, so let's go do that.
Common Core, for folks who are following along, last month we managed to get a citizens petition on the ballot in a couple of school districts and in the Winnicott Regional School District, which covers, I think, 5 or 6 towns. Every single one of those towns, as far as I know, not only voted to reject Common Core, but they voted overwhelmingly. Winnicott's vote overall was about 3,000 votes to 2,000 votes, or what was it, 2955 to 1954. So it was a 60-40 split. So it wasn't just a little majority, it was a super majority. And that, again, so some people were complaining about the wording, and some people didn't vote on it, but they would have voted for it. So next year we'll come back.
Oh, you always hear that, though.
Well, okay. Next year we'll come back with a little bit clearer wording on these petitions.
Do you reject Common Core, yes or no?
Should we reject Common Core and demand a return to local control? We'll probably get 2/3 support on that. But we have a few Republicans who have been going along with the Democrats in support of Common Core. Now, Jeb Bush supports Common Core, and he's been getting beat up on his support of that.
Good.
And he, of course, claims the 10th Amendment rights for states to have their own common cause without realizing that lets the camel's nose into the tent because the federal government's setting the standards anyway.
Right. So he's getting beat up on that, and he is no longer the favorite of some people who might have supported him. Now, Nancy Stiles and a few others have supported Common Core all along, but now that these measures have passed, as far as I know, every single school district where this was put on as a citizen petition in New Hampshire, the voters have overwhelmingly rejected Common Core all over the state. So it wasn't just Winnicott, it wasn't just out on the seacoast.
Well, it's a good issue because teachers don't like it, right? Anybody who pays any attention to education doesn't like it. Good teachers. Well, I mean, there are teachers who are so union that they'll do whatever the union tells them. And if the union has decided that it's going with Common Core because that's where their masters want them to go, that's where they're going to go. Every organization has people like that. The Republican Party is obviously full of them because they go, oh, well, leadership said we're going to do this, let's go do that. Doesn't make any sense. They don't think independently. But a lot of teachers, and my wife's a teacher, are concerned about all of the things that we talk about. Maybe not in the depth that we talk about. Maybe they're not so in tune with what smarter balanced assessment is, or what all these fancy terms are that basically mean data collection for the federal government, money tied to federal curriculum, things like that. You really boil it down to, if you support this, you lose control of your school to Washington, D.C.
And as you know, I am a union man. I've never crossed a picket line, and I never would. I stood in line for days and days and days while we had the Market Basket strike going. And, most of the Market Basket employees at the two Seabrook stores, they recognize me now because I was one of the guys who just stood in line and held a sign with them. But I'll tell you what, I won't do what the union officials tell me because they're not us. They're not, they don't come up through the ranks like we do. They're just... It's almost like they're appointed. They come in with their degrees from Harvard, and they're anointed by who knows who, the AFL-CIO royalty, and they just push the liberal agenda on every single issue.
And that's the problem. And they have their own agenda. It's not a workers' agenda. It's a union agenda.
Steve, you put up the post where that lady was talking about the...
Which one of these are you on here?
I am now on this one.
It's a George Soros
it works.
agenda.
Okay.
See, I thought I could do this.
You did it. Okay, anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Faster than I thought. Anyways, you put up the post where that lady was talking about the computerized testing and how it can modify behavior on Granite Grok. And
yeah,
that's
Anne-Marie Banfield sent me that.
Yeah, and that's another one of those deals where it takes away from local control, and it certainly takes away from the parents because you can't track what the computer is doing online. There's no way the parents can hold their teachers or their school system or their school board or anywhere else accountable because there's no audit trail that they can access in real time or after time.
It's a lot like any other issue with local control. You talk about local control at the state level, you talk about bringing the money back. It's because you can go to your state rep's house, or you can go see your state rep at work, or you can go talk to your town selectman or your school board member, and you can actually influence the debate and possibly affect policy. If you take it and you move it to Washington, D.C., now you have to fly to Washington, D.C., just you or whatever, and try to get in touch with one person out of 435 or whatever it is, and try to convince them to get the entire nation to go along with your plan. Because you're concerned about your students' learning environment, okay? It's the same thing. States' rights, local control, 10th Amendment, you can't let them do it. The minute they take it away, you can go to your school board and you can talk to them till you're blue in the face. You can go talk to your supervisor, your superintendent, okay? You can talk to teachers. You can talk to counselors. You can talk to other parents. Does nothing. Nothing. They've taken all of that power away from you.
Yeah. I still bet that if the superintendent said hell no, and more than a handful of them said hell no in the state, that effectively it would be dead.
They won't, Bo, because the money will come if they say yes and they want the money.
Yeah, they don't care where the money's coming from as long as the money's coming in.
And
you have to realize that most of these people are not independent. They are a absolute functionary of the educational industrial complex.
And when the money stops coming in, which it eventually will, by then it's too late.
Yeah, it's like Medicaid expansion. It's the same old deal. You get used to that crack money from the federal government. the people get hooked, and how dare you take this away from me? We have become
then
a
it's
selfish.
Greece. Then it's Greece.
We have become a selfish nation. I want money from other people for my purposes.
Right, and the school superintendents are more about growing their fiefdoms and therefore having more employees.
Especially if you're the Earl of Metzler.
Even if, when you look at it, most of the things the federal government demands and funds are A, not fully funded, and B, not necessary. If you simply said, hell no, we won't do this, you wouldn't need the money.
Yeah.
Well, if you didn't let them take the money in the first place, you'd have it if you needed it. Did you have another bill? We only did two.
Designating the mastodon as
the
official state fossil, HB 113. This was widely rounded against as the most specious, irrelevant, waste of time bill. People have been laughing about it all session. Finally, it came up for a vote. The one representative who supported it, his bill, again, there were kids supporting it. He wanted to show them the process, and it was trounced. I think it only got about 60 or 70 votes on the floor. It was beaten pretty badly. But when that came up, the Mastodon bill, of course, it harkened back to memories of the Red Tail Hawk bill. Finally, there was an interesting one, HB 141, relative to rulemaking authority considering work schedules in pharmacies. Should pharmacies be allowed to work their pharmacists to tiredom and exhaustion and fatigue? And there were pro-liberty reps who were in favor of this bill because the concern was there were a few pharmacies out there running people double shifts, and it was causing some mistakes.
They can go to other companies.
They can be sued for the mistakes. The point is, if it's bad judgment on the part of the business, eventually the chicken will come home to roost without the aid of reverent right.
Did it pass?
Pharmaceutical sweatshops. I got it.
Yeah. Did it, nicely put. Did it pass or did it get killed?
It passed, but it passed with amendment, but it did pass by voice vote.
They had me counting pills 14 hours a day.
And then they wonder why businesses don't want to come here. Businesses are tired of being functionaries of government. That's really what's going on. Am I a government flunky or not? If government controls what I can do and what I can't do or how I have to do things, then why aren't I don't even want to go there.
And part of the startup costs, when you've got the first few months, if your first 9 months while you're trying to get this new restaurant or business open, if that grows to 12 months or 15 months while you're trying to figure out all these new rules, regulations, and all these laws, that slows down the startup time, it increases your startup costs, and it results in more businesses failing and more lost jobs.
All right, Max, thank you so much for spending the day with us. We are GrokTALK. We'll be back next week from someplace, maybe here, maybe on location. We'll let you know. See ya.
Grok TV.